This episode is brought to you by long, quiet spaces or pauses.
Long empty spaces.
Yeah, long, empty spaces and pauses.
I'm your pause.
I'm looking for the man who shot my
Pause.
tumbleweed. Welcome to Tuhon And Son. It's been too long since we had an episode, and there's a good reason for that. We recorded an episode, and then I lost it. I can't find it. I was looking for it. So before we begin this episode, I just want to give a shout out to a Gamma student named Alla, because in the last episode, I gave him a shout out because he said he listened to the show, and I really hope he didn't take it personal when the episode never came out. I was like, holy shit. They gave me a shout out and they disappeared for weeks. But that's not
It was more out than shout.
Yeah, that's not the case. So today, we just before we begin, I was forcing Dad to watch some Daredevil on Netflix. I showed him that uncut 5-minute fight scene in episode 2. And just to give him a little taste of the old school type of kung fu approach they were trying to take. Not kung fu the show, but just the idea of these old movies where not everything is shot super, super close, and they kind of just say, hey, edit. Like, hey, this is what a move looks like. People practiced them back in the day before they covered up the fact that they put Jessica Biel in action movies. And oh man, there's this movie Blade 3. It's called Blade Trinity, and apparently Jessica Biel trained for 3 months in kickboxing to have the top half of her face in some fists show. You know, like you wouldn't even know. And I don't know. And I just think the show is really earthy, and considering it's set in the same universe as a talking raccoon, it's a pretty deep show. So beyond that, beyond this Marvel Bowl-ness and stuff, Dad, you've been going here and there and all around the square saying catch you if you can. I can't remember where the hell you've been, to be honest.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Arizona.
Okay.
I went down to Phoenix, Arizona. I actually got to see a couple of people in my family down there.
All right.
And but for the most part, I was down there. There was a Grand Master of Kajugimbo by the name of George Lim, and his lovely wife Patrice, who is the senior professor of his art. And they have a lot of students in the Phoenix area. And I was invited down to participate, give a seminar. Participate as a witness of their promotions, and we all trudged up to the Grand Canyon.
Witness protection.
I thought, yeah, well, I protected myself, that's for sure.
Stay off Facebook, dumbass. That's your witness protection program.
Anyway, though, but no, they had a lot of people, and we had they actually brought 3 people in to help teach their seminars. Myself, a Professor Tim Gagne, and a Sigung Greg Hoyt, and all different. We had different groups, and of course they were there helping a lot. And all their schools came out, and they had a big promotion, and it was really nice. And then the next day we had on the Friday we had a big promotion and training, and then we had a luau, and then on the Saturday we went driving all the way up to Flagstaff, and then past Flagstaff into the Grand Canyon. And it was really amazing because we stayed at this place called the Bright Angel Lodge. And this is like right on the edge, right on the rim of the Grand Canyon. It was amazing. So that's where I was a couple of weeks ago. And
there's a scene in Beavis and Butthead Do America that I gotta love. Dad always had a good sense of humor, and we went to see Beavis and Butthead Do America together at one point. And there's this scene where everyone on their Beavis and Butthead are on like a senior citizens tour bus for some reason, and they're all looking at the Grand Canyon, marveling over the sight of it, and you see it just pans over to Beavis and Butthead laughing and pointing at a donkey crapping. So every time I hear the Grand Canyon, I always associate it with that.
And speaking of that, we were in the gift shop of the Bright Angel Lodge, and they sell mule shoes, like horseshoes. Well, they have mule shoes.
Okay.
And I don't think they had mules there for a while, so they're probably faked out. But okay. It was
You're like, buy the mule shoe of the mule inspired for the scene where Beavis and Butthead watch crap. Yeah.
But no, it was amazing. When it was there, here we were. It was a couple of weeks ago, so it was just late April, and we were there, and all of a sudden it started to snow. I mean,
In Arizona?
yeah, exactly. We're in Arizona. Everybody thinks, oh, Arizona is a desert. Yeah, well,
what do you
Arizona.
call the opposite of global warming? Like,
Well, that's part of global warming, but
Is
it's
it?
not. No, it's not even that. What you have in Arizona is you have a lot of different temperate zones.
Okay.
And so they have, the desert in the desert, but also they have mountains, because to get up to the Grand Canyon, you have to get into a mountain range. And it was actually kind of funny, because when I was going through, when we stopped in Phoenix, when we stopped in Phoenix, it was really warm there. We went up to Flagstaff, but Flagstaff was advertising, they have all these ski shops. So there's skiing in there in the wintertime.
God, that's confusing.
And then you go a little bit higher, and of course you go and get to the Grand Canyon. And when we went back, instead of taking the way back we came, we went another way. We went through a place called Sedona, which is this really amazing town in Arizona. But to get there, we went through these huge areas where it was filled with ice and snow. It was like, what the heck's going on here? This is desert, right?
It's like the biodome.
Yeah, exactly, like the biodome. And so we went there, and then we went to a lower elevation, and of course the snow wasn't there anymore. And but it was really neat for a while. I mean, you could see, you'd go through this, like, not quite prairie, but you could see it was flat terrain, and for a couple of miles, all you could see was this white, thick powder stuff.
It's Mother's Day at the time of this recording. It's Mother's Day. You took Mom to Arizona with you, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh yeah, you guys had a great old time in Arizona.
Is that what she told you?
Yes. Well, in those exact words.
No, it was
Mom has the dialect of 1960s.
Mom.
Sitcom mom.
Yeah. Anyway, we would.
She's a calm mom.
Sitcom mom.
Also known as a commie. I don't know. I got nothing. You're in Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona.
And there was snow.
And there was snow, and she has no political leanings at all, so she's neither a commie nor anything else.
No, I don't know.
I know, but when you call somebody a commie, that you got to back it up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, what's his name from the FBI is rolling in his grave right now.
Which one?
Edgar Hoover. Yeah.
But he's rolling around with a boy.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Expose movie. Leonardo DiCaprio in 5 pounds of makeup. Anyway, yeah. Where else besides Arizona have you guys been?
Oh.
Or you been?
I see.
Well, you're about to leave again.
I'm about to leave again. Next weekend, we're going to Edmonton. There's a small group there that's been, there's 2 people there. There's Harold Casenya, and he runs the local Pikiti Tercia program. He was promoted last year to basically organize that thing. He came with us I met him in the Philippines in 2013. Yeah, 2000.
Oh, regardless of the date, then what happened?
Okay, well, no, I met, and so anyway, he's been working with us for a few years, and so he has a small group that does Pikiti Tercia out there, and one of my older students, like DJ Kennedy, has been living out there. He's been working in the oil fields, and he's got an instructor level under me as well. And they've got a group, and I'm going to be going out and spending the weekend with them next weekend, teaching a seminar, and getting to know a few more of the people in Edmonton.
Awesome. Sounds great. So if anybody hears this in Edmonton, Philip's looking forward to crossing swords. Is it swords? What are you teaching out there?
We use botanic sticks.
Duh. So more like sticks, but
but
crossing sticks.
Sort of stuff. Yeah, crossing sticks.
Yeah, crossing sticks intentionally for swords. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
Anyway, but
this is my second or third coffee in the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
I watched Daredevil. I'm off the walls.
Oh, right. He's jumping. Anyway, also. I'm
blinded with excitement.
I was in New York earlier in the year, and it was great because the guys from Brooklyn Delete.
You mentioned this is in one of our episodes. You're mentioning about we have an episode for everyone listening out there called "Back in the New York Groove."
Yeah, that's true.
Where Dad talks about being in New York. There
in New York, yeah,
pretty good there. I don't know why I spoke like a Muppet right there. But,
I don't know if it's a Muppet. I think it's from what's it called? Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
The Fargo episode.
Yeah, what the hell is with that hybrid of like a Canadian racist stereotype and Fargo? Like, it's such a similar accent for some reason, although no one I know in Canada talks like that.
Well, Fargo is in North Dakota. That's why.
Oh yeah, Phil. So you're gonna go out there and cross your swords and sticks and fight, eh? All right.
You almost went into an Irish brogue there.
Oh yeah, I don't know. My accents, I'm kind of like, when it comes to trying to do accents, I feel like I'm slightly schizophrenic. You know, I have multiple personalities and I can't decide how they talk. All right, Philip. So where are you off to next? Yeah. Edmonton. Edmonton, Rock City. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, back to Daredevil. Hey, Dad, I remember when I was a kid. Dad hasn't watched Daredevil yet, so he can't give a review. But I'm going to say, like, I would give this thing, like, I don't know. For me personally, and my personal taste and what I dig, every time Dad watches like one of those CSI, like who did it type of murder shows and stuff like that, I always kind of chime in. I'm always kind of interested. It's not a show that I watch every week, but every time it's on, I want to know who did it. So it's kind of nice that this is one of those shows where, you know, you kind of know who did it, but at the same time, you want to know how they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know everything, but anyway, it just combined that with some old school type of beat 'em up stuff and some, you know, the fact that he doesn't have his big red flaming suit, considering he's blind and, you know, he could be wearing a yellow suit, like, you know.
And somebody could tell him it's red.
And someone could tell him it's red. That's a little joke for people who actually follow the comics. But what I'm remembering
Well, you know what's funny?
Dad,
they actually had,
he had a yellow suit. But Dad, didn't you buy Daredevil 1 when you were a kid?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did.
Yeah, that's why I was bringing it up. I was like,
it was.
yeah.
I was a bit of a comic geek. I was delivering a local newspaper called the Gazette.
Yeah,
and I was able to make at least $5 a week. And this is in the days when comics didn't cost much more than 12 cents or 25 cents, depending. So you could buy a couple of comics with that. And yeah, I got to see. I guess it was Spider-Man when it first started, and then Daredevil later on. Yeah. There was actually a karate guy in there. Well, actually, it wasn't a karate guy. It was called Judo Master.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I was even in those days. I was into martial arts. This is before I actually started training.
You were a martial arts fanboy before you ever started. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's but they had this thing. It was one of those strange. I don't know. Those really weird comics that had like strange stuff all the time. So they had a Judo Master, and it was this guy, supposedly an American Marine, and he was shot. He and his guy. He was the only one left of his platoon, and he was anyway. So he was shot and left for dead, and he was found by some guy in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and he was brought by this old Oriental guy. One would presume Japanese because of judo, but one was never given that information.
This sounds almost like the Lone Ranger, but please
very
continue.
Much, yeah. Very well. You don't. I didn't say it was original. I just said it was a Judo Master. Anyway,
it's not the Lone Ranger.
Anyway, so this guy brought him, and he mastered judo. Kind of like the way what's his name? Our favorite Scientologist, what's his name? Tom Cruise mastered arts that would take a lifetime to master for a samurai to start off as a young child. Okay. By using samurai ontology, he was able to use it. He was able to master the arts of he was to the point. Well, no, I mean, here he was getting beaten up by guys with big logs, and then he was able to.
Are you talking about the movie The Last Samurai?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, that's why it was kind of funny because it was the same absurdity.
I thought you meant like he was walking around thinking it was actually samurai. Because
who knows?
That could happen.
Who knows?
That could happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're clear.
If you're going clear.
Anyway, but this Judo Master thing didn't last very long. But there were a couple of things that were very funny because he had a uniform, and the uniform was this kind of like they didn't have spandex in those days, but you could draw as if it was spandex. So they had him with a a suit that was kind of like the Japanese flag from the Second World War, which was kind of like the rising sun. So you had the white background with the red sun and all the rays. So he had this thing like the red sun was in the middle of his body, and the rays were going everywhere. And he went around and judo chopped people and judo threw people. And
did he wear a mask, or was he just
wore a
like
mask,
okay, or was he just like check this out?
But it was just so funny because
Cobra Kai never dies.
well, yeah, and it was just so funny because the guy who taught him was old, but it's just this idea that you could tell that these guys had never had a clue.
Yeah,
it's not the first time that people actually started having martial arts, a bit of a clue about martial arts, other than the guy doing it, was in the Kung Fu series.
Yeah,
because before that they had some guys, good martial artists that would be on I Love Lucy and all these old shows, but the stuntmen doing it were mostly people who had no clue.
Yeah.
And so it would always be, there was when I studied with Dan Inosanto, who's one of Bruce Lee's students, and
he's coming to town.
He's
when,
coming to town, yeah, in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Give an exact date.
The 30th and 31st of May. He's going to be at the school.
Come on down.
At 1121 St. Catherine West, fifth
there
floor.
May or may not, depending, be a screening of Game of Death. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, well, maybe.
Probably not. But anyway, continue.
Anyway, so and what was I talking about?
Dan and Santa.
Dan and Santa. Yeah, but what was it? What was it?
We were talking about stuntmen had no clue.
Yeah. Okay.
And there was some
anyway,
martial arts on some famous shows like I Love Lucy.
Yeah, right. So, but anyway, Dan Inosanto was he appeared on a lot of these TV shows, and his teacher Bruce Lee appeared on a lot of these TV shows. But up to that point, most people, was just kind of goofy. The stuff they would do, there's a guy named Ed Parker who was a founder of American Kempo, and he was living in Hollywood and had a lot of stars who were his clients or his students, and they would teach stupid stuff in these shows. But it was almost like it didn't matter because the people who were doing it had no idea. It's kind of like, if you're trying to get a movie with rock and roll as the title or as the subject matter in the 50s, it would either be the rock and roll people were always either like thugs or gangsters, or totally clueless teenagers. There was nothing about it that was interesting at all. It was just like, oh gosh, these people are cardboard cutout characters, and so that's what would happen. So it was very neat in the series, the Kung Fu series, that they would actually have people who had martial arts skill working with other people who had martial arts skill, and the bad guys were people with martial arts skill who were trying to do something, and then David Carradine's character would do something to them using, well, he didn't have any martial arts skill, but it was as close as it got. And not nobody, but very few people know this, but Bruce Lee was the person who came up with that idea.
Yeah, and he was supposed to play it, and then...
And they said, no, you're too Chinese.
Yeah.
We want a nice Chinese-American guy.
Which is funny, like being your child and knowing things. I was watching TV and they're like, or I don't know, top 10 or something like that. Like someone on YouTube it was kind of like a top 10 thing, and like people who didn't almost get the roles or something like that. And you're like, David Carradine beat out Bruce Lee for the role. It's like, no, he didn't. They just didn't want him because he was Chinese. That's not beating him out.
Well, I mean,
that's being biologically fortunate in those horrible circumstances.
Well, there was a series called Charlie Chan in the 30s and 40s, and almost none of the leading stars were Chinese.
What person? It's a famous role, and it's very racist. It's at Breakfast at Tiffany's or something like that. There's an actor that portrays an Asian American, and it's pretty insulting, I gotta say.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they show it in like Dragon, a Bruce Lee story, which is very inaccurate. Don't watch that, folks, unless you're watch it like you're watching Lord of the Rings. But anyway, you see like the character of Bruce, like watching that part, and Linda, who he was dating at the time, is laughing and turns to him and sees a stone look on his face, like, ouch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, it's no different from how natives see themselves being portrayed.
Dad, I gotta say, I just want to give this information because I have it. The movie, the story, the serials, the comic, The Phantom, which a guy in a purple suit lives in Africa and convinces all the natives that he's like their lord and pretends he's a ghost while wearing a onesie that's purple. The Ghost Who Walks or something like that. Anyway, it was a movie of Billy Zane in the late 90s, and it completely bombed and stuff. And anyway, they had these serials in the 1930s. Where, those little stories for those people who are
7 or 8 minute long.
Yeah, like let's say 15. And at the movie theater, they would play these short little cliffhangers. Pretty much what Indiana Jones is based off of is this idea, except it's all in one movie. Like, get him in trouble, get him in worse trouble, then get him in even worse trouble. Narrowly getting out of it each time. So in these serials, there's the Phantom one. And, oh my God, Dad. He's like in Africa, right? All the Africans are white guys pretending to be Native Americans. It is
Native Americans or black people?
They're supposed to be black people, but it's a bunch of white guys pretending they're Native Americans in Africa. It is the most painful thing.
Well,
and it's just, I just needed to say that this exists. There's also the Batman serial from the 40s where, like, it's the original one, and like, Batman and Robin represent the youth of today, willing to put their lives on the line for their country. After Gotham got wise and shoved all the shifty-eyed Japs out of Gotham City, and I'm like, and I'm like listening to this, and I'm just like, oh dear God. And then there was this book that was at a comic book store that says transcribing of this serial, and I'm just like, did they do? And I read it. Sure enough, after Gotham City got wise and the main antagonist in this Batman series, and anyone who wants to watch this thing, it's pretty much a serial that was so bad it was hilarious, and I used to watch it at the Playboy Mansion, because it was hilariously under budget and cheap and crappy, that the producers of what would become the 1966 Batman show were watching everybody laughing and saying, "Hey, Batman's funny. Let's make a show and make it funny." So anyway, it's called Batman, and it's from 1939. And I think it's on YouTube if anyone's curious, if they want to check this out. It's a black hole in the history of the Dark Knight. All right, let's talk about something else. Dad, did you ever follow the character Iron Fist? When you were younger?
No.
Yeah, that's supposedly like another like kung fu master that there's another guy called Master of Kung Fu. I can't remember the proper name, but I'm pretty sure it's called Master of Kung Fu. And a guy who works with it's called Iron Fist, where he concentrates all his energy into his hand, and his hand becomes stronger than iron. That will be a Netflix show next year. So that will be total kung fu, and all that kind of stuff. That's my nerdiness. I just have to do something with this information. It's in there. I can't remember calculus. I can't pronounce most of the provinces in this country, but I do know that Batman in 39 was super racist.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like there are so many examples. I mean, now everybody's rewriting stuff, and they're trying to make sure that everybody gets a better idea of people who do things like that. But you just start realizing after a very short period of time that that's the kind of stuff that you have to look forward to. And there's nowadays it's better, but it's not great. But it's it's still better. We have a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely. But that's why I'm kind of like glad I was born when I was, because I can look back at these times and roll my eyes about how hilarious it was, as opposed to saying, well, yeah.
Well, I guess when you look at Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee only passed away 30 years ago. And one of the reasons why he went to live in Hong Kong was because, for all intents and purposes, whatever he wasn't accepted. He could be this really great guy, and he had that Long Street TV show, and everybody thought it was really cool. But I remember being at seminars and people talking about this, this lost interview. And I had no idea what they're talking about, because the interview wasn't lost. It was on Canadian TV. All they had to do was go to the CBC and ask for a transcript of this thing, and they could get it. But for the longest time, because Americans, they are very, very media savvy, but when it comes to anything in any other country, they're kind of clueless.
Yeah, that's Kevin Smith wanted all the Degrassi episodes once he got his Clerks check. he spent like 15 grand on
Getting copies?
on getting copies because he had to contact like a Scholastic company or something like that to give him copies of the entire series on VHS, which is ridiculous now when you think of YouTube and all that stuff. But back in the day, there's a store in town called Rock on Stock where people used to spend like $30 on a copied cassette tape of like Metallica from a tape recorder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, bootlegs in those days. I remember in the days of vinyl records that I was deeply involved with. They had the big thing was to get pressed copies of like Dylan's Basement tapes was a big deal. I mean, everybody else, of course, there was a lot of trading on in not the dark net, but they're trading on underground stuff of albums that would be recorded. As soon as they came out with a cassette tape, it became an awful lot easier. But they would actually have printed, pressed copies of vinyl albums, and they would be, and they would be pretty bad quality. But nowadays, I mean, anybody shows up at a concert with a cell phone and turns it on. Yeah. They've got a bootleg copy of that concert. So.
No, what were hipsters like back then, Dad? Because nowadays it's kind of like, hey, say, you ever hear of this album? It's like, yeah, I have the CD. It's like, yeah, I have the cassette tape. And it's just like, oh yeah, I had the cassette tape when I was a kid. It's like, yeah, I had the bootleg cassette tape. That's kind of rare, And it's like, what back then? It's like, oh, I have the vinyl. I have the reissued vinyl, or I have the old vinyl. So back in the day, it's like, what was it? It's like, oh yeah, I have that vinyl. It's like, I have the DAT tape.
Well, yeah, there's to be able to get rare albums, because a lot of times albums would be put out in very, very small amounts. I remember one of the first ones that was like that for public or big release was the concert for Bangladesh that George Harrison put together with all his buddies, Eric Clapton and Bob Dylan and everybody. And it was in the early 70s in New York, and it went in. It was there was a lot of sitar music and stuff like that. The people from Bangladesh were the people like Ravi Shankar and Ali Rocca, whatever these guys were.
Ravi Shankar, wasn't he the jazz guy that really embraced the sitar stuff?
No, he was a sitarist. So he was a classical sitarist from Bangladesh who happened to teach the Beatles. He was teaching the Beatles how to do stuff, and so he gave. I think he became good friends with George Harrison and I guess many other people. I remember seeing him in Montreal at a classical performance at Place des Arts, and I remember realizing that this was classical music, and I really didn't think that much of classical music, and I guess I was just warped. My brain was warped by the idea that I made some kind of twisted connection between him and maybe we're going to hear Beatles music. I don't know, but we didn't, and so it was. I slept.
I'm totally stoked because Weird Al Yankovic is playing the comedy fest this year for free, and it's been exactly 20 years since I've seen him last time for free at the comedy fest.
Weird Al,
got Mom to take me. It was like one of my first real concerts. Like, sure, I think I saw them up the Sharon Lois and Bram and stuff like that, but I don't remember that stuff. I remember Weird Al rocking the Amish Paradise. So anyway, let's quick more couple of things until we go. Dad, what's the progress of moving the gym? Like,
actually, I was there last week, and actually, I had at the beginning of the month, the week I moved back, or I came back.
Yeah,
I guess so. It's about 2 weeks ago. I had a meeting with the landlord, and they asked me, "So, are you ready to move in?" I said, "Yes, I'm ready to move in." And they were very smiley. And I said, "But you're not ready for me to move in." And they went, "What do you mean?" Well, and so I responded with, "Well, have you seen the place?" No. Well, that's a good beginning. So we wandered over because it was on the same floor as their offices, and we walked around the corner, and we went in there, and there was a realization. I mean, I have a training floor that had not been constructed yet.
Okay.
They'd put in a hardwood floor for the entranceway and where the counter is, but and they'd built my office, but they hadn't actually they had not put a door on it, so it's no point. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done that before I can even start doing things to it. So I'm hoping that by this month it'll be done, but I'm not holding my breath.
It's kind of the first time that Gamma's been Gamma without you kind of like rebuilding it
Yeah, I know.
from scratch.
I
like
know.
one of our episodes, how to build a gym. Look back at it, people, for the big details. But Dad, this is the first time you've kind of like haven't been, not exactly by choice.
Well, it makes it look funny because the last time I moved in somewhere, which was on Mayor Street, it took me about 4 or 5 months to get the place ready, but I was doing everything. I mean, they've taken advantage of what I did. The people who took over from me when I left that place have been using the space as I left it. I mean, they did some stuff to it, of course, but I went through the whole place and I took down all of the old junky plaster on the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So I had a little air chisel and whatever, and we took on hundreds of bags full of plaster and put them, and they got rid of them. But they had almost nothing to do because we'd done all the hard work.
Yeah.
And so, good on them that they did it. I mean, I don't feel like they owe me anything, but at the same time, I know how long it took. This time they've taken 12 months, and when I went in there were sinks that were supposed to be installed. They hadn't been installed yet. There's a bathroom door. It wasn't there. Originally, they actually had to change things because we'd had 4 revisions, and the last one was revision 4 on the design. And so I went in there one day and I said, well, this doorway's the wrong direction. And so I went to the people who, instead of going to the guy, I went to the people who I was doing this with, the building. And I said, look, this isn't being done right. Because the guy who followed the revision, he'd be upset because he'd want me to go along with his way of doing it because that's what these guys are like. Yeah. Like they try to make you seem
They're under
stupid.
the impression that you know nothing, but you're like, you should say, do you have any idea how many gyms I've built?
Well, there's that. But most of the time, I mean, invariably, I'm not going to say that, oh, wow, the gyms I've built are these stellar examples. But I know why I want to build a toilet this way. Yeah. And I know how big it can be. And I know in what direction. I mean, the last time, actually, when we were in the place we're in now, I was installing a toilet. We'd built 2 toilets because we had to take down where the toilets were before because the floor underneath it was all destroyed by the guys who lived there. Had let water leak and the floor had rotted. So we had to basically take everything up and re-pour a floor underneath. So fine. And then we said, okay, so now what do we have to do is we have to drill a hole. So we're drilling this stupid hole for the toilet drain. And the guy, the plumber, not me, the plumber installs it's a gasket where the toilet sits. And the toilet itself has 2 screw holes on either side of it. So if you put the screws in going straight down, but he turned the stupid gasket by almost 45 degrees, which would have meant that you couldn't seat it properly. It would always come up. It was almost like he did this as a freaking joke. So, so now our toilet sits slightly at an angle because I didn't want it to be popping up every 2 months because, when people sit on things, they move. And so it hasn't. We've had it on there for 3 years, and it hasn't been a problem at all ever. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't have been a problem. But that's the type of thing you run into. You see people and they do things, they have ideas, and they don't check with you, and then you go, no, it's not good enough. Yeah. And they go, oh, it's too bad, it's too late.
Yeah.
So that's my life in a nutshell.
Yeah. Cut twice, ask none. Yeah. All right, Dad. All right. Well, we're gonna keep people updated on the progress of the new gym and stuff like that. But I don't know. Let's go off on something, a little 2-minute, a little funner thing.
Well, actually, in July, at the end of July, we have the 4th Dog Brothers Gathering, Canadian Dog Brothers Gathering that's coming up. And it's going to be, I expect it to be really great because it's, we've been building our attendance and we have people even who want to come in from Europe to do it.
But for all the participating people out there willing to come over from Europe, you're going to have the best weekend ever. And for sure, no matter what, Dog Brother people, I will make sure that we will have a Gamma movie night.
Okay.
About something regarding stick fighting.
About dogs. Dogs doing stick fighting.
All dogs go to heaven.
All dogs go to gatherings.
Yeah. We'll do Benji and The Last Samurai. No, I'm just kidding.
No, The Last Samoyed. That's
Yeah,
it,
there you go.
Or maybe Old Yeller, especially
Yeah, there you
where he
go.
gets shot
What's
at
a
the
good
end.
stick fighting movie? Is there a good stick fighting movie?
No.
Okay, well, I'll make it.
Well, actually, no. There that one where Sylvester Stallone, one of the not the first Raw Rambo, maybe the second or third. I think the third Rambo, like when he was in Thailand and they kind of like came and got him, and he was actually doing something. I guess it was supposed to be Kirby Kerbong. It's hard to say, but he did stick fighting in that movie.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. All right, everyone. So thanks for listening to Tuhon and Son. You can check us out on MontrealMartialArts.com. That's the website of Gamma.
Yeah.
We have so many disciplines. And the best part of all these disciplines is that you get to try it out for free. You don't have to, dish out the money and then say, I hate this. You could decide for yourself if you hate it. And,
But you'll never say you hate it because you will love it.
you'll love it.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of fighting out there. You know what Sean Patrick Flannery said to me? He's one of the Boondock Saints and used to train at our gym back in the day. He was also in the movie Powder, which is ironic because that's my band nickname because I'm so pale. They had to pretty his ass up with some white makeup. I'm au natural. Anyway, he said to me, he's like, really? You have this whole well of information and you don't train? It's like, it's an amazing feeling when you walk in a room knowing that you're stronger than people and stuff. Or something to that effect. Anyway, Sean Patrick Flannery is a great guy. Look him up on Twitter. He hasn't been in the gym in a while. Haven't seen him in...
Well, his primary focus is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, that's true. He's a big jiu-jitsu advocate. So anyway, everyone out there, thank you for listening to Tuhon and Son. I am Ryan Sticks Gelina.
And I'm Philip Tuhon Gelinas.
And if you know a good stick fighting movie, besides Daredevil, woo! Right, actually, no, Daredevil only rocks the six later in the show.
There is that one. There is that movie.
What?
The one with Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah. The Book of Eli.
The Book of Eli.
Yeah, there you go. So maybe we'll watch the Book of Eli and Benji.
Yeah.
The one with Chevy Chase. All right. See you, bye.
All right. Bye-bye.